Surround thyself with the thought of the Christ. Behold, I stand at the door, and knock. If any man hear my voice, and open the door, I will come into him, and will sup with him, and he with me. How can we as a group get in accord with those that are aiding us? Open thine hearts to those of the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, beauty, and might, and throwing about self that protection that is found in the thoughts of him, so may the activities be that bring about the work that may be accomplished, the thought as may be made active in the lives of others, the health, the prosperity even that may be brought to those through those efforts of individuals, group, as an active force with him in this material plane. Please expand on the statement, open our hearts to those unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, and beauty and might, throwing about us the protection found in the thought of the Christ. These expand by doing it. That's the best expansion. Where thou sayest, O God, that it may be of service. And that I may serve, use it in the way and manner, as thou seest. And as ye open your body and your mind and your heart to these probabilities and possibilities, then ye become imbued with that power. It is not what is said, it is the spirit and the purpose for which it is sought and said. He that would break down, he that can stumble for Christ's sake, he that can be made ashamed for his sake winneth, that which fame or fortune or power may not bring, the consciousness of his presence abiding within. Tear aside, as it were, the veil that separates thee from the pure white light of the Christ consciousness. Ye have experienced it again and again. Then hearken not to the fleshpots that would make thy way easy, for easy sake. Trust wholly in him, and he will do thee good. How may I completely free myself from the hypnotic influence of certain persons, which hinders me at times in my work? Surround thyself, ever, with the white light of the Christ consciousness, and all of these will pass away. Know deep within self, know in thy body, in thy mind, in thy soul, as he hath promised of old, I stand at the door, whosoever will, open, I will enter, I will abide with thee always. In that shelter no harm may come. Keep that way open, close the doors to others. Please explain how she may protect herself from these entities. As an entity, a soul, a mind, enters as has been so oft given, put about the self the cloak, the garment, yea, the mantle of Christ, not as a man, not as an individual, but the Christ, that universal consciousness of love, that we see manifested in those who have forgotten self but, as Jesus, give themselves that others may know the truth. For the promise has been, if ye will call, I will hear. If ye will call, I will hear. That is the protection. Call, that the Spirit of truth, that is manifested in the promises of an all-loving Father, be about self in the seeking to aid, to bring cheer, hope, help, faith, courage to the weak, to the discouraged, to the disconsolate. These be the promises, and how hath it been said? Though the heavens and the earth pass away, my words, my promises shall not, unless ye supersede them by the promises of man. Know there are hidden forces, latent within self, not aroused to their best ability, their best activity. In the Spirit of truth, as manifested in him who is the way, the truth, the life, may those activities be aroused. For, no, with surrounding thyself with the consciousness of the Christ force, no intent, no purpose of any force may contend with that Spirit. Hold fast to him. Let not fear enter in. For, surrounding thyself with his love, no doubt, no fear, could enter in. Please explain the difference between the Holy Spirit speaking through an individual, and when it is an entity from the other side, and why I so desire the Holy Spirit, the teacher within. After having opened myself, should I receive any communications from outside entities? As has been the warning to all, so encompass self with the thoughts of the Christ consciousness, that only that which may come from the throne itself may be the source of that which will guide, or direct thee in thy seeking. The Holy Spirit has been pointed out in its activity as designating an individual in the earth for a particular service in the earth, while the communication that may come from outside forces or entities even though they may be sent as messengers, is as a relay. Just as the experiences of many of ye that are gathered here may receive through these channels, that which will aid thee in awakening to the possibilities, the responsibilities, within thine own experience, but to experience that thou hast been awakened from within in thine own consciousness of being in closer walk with him is more glorious still, and only known by those who experience same. Both are wonderful. One is as of guided by the Spirit of truth, the other as relayed to thine consciousness. The entity has exceptional abilities in obtaining that it desires. Be sure, then, in thy wishing, in thy seeking, that ye ever surround thyself with the thoughts, with the awareness of, the desire for the Christ consciousness, and those inclinations for influences that might waver, that might direct the entity into unstable channels, will be lessened. For, all might, all power in heaven and in earth has been given into his keeping. For, he, having overcome the influences of the world of matter, being endowed with the Spirit of truth, and helpfulness, and hopefulness, and love, is able to keep thee from falling into the errors of materiality, or of ease. But directing in those ways that make for the assurance of his abiding grace and mercy and strength, ye may present to thy fellow man, as ye are called on to do, an example, a way, a lesson, yet a weapon that will bring to others peace, harmony, and the longing for the filling of their lives, as well as thine own, with love and beauty and charm, that brings the consciousness of his abiding presence. Where can I get concrete guidance besides from the inner voice? Seek not other than that of his meeting thee within thine own temple. For beside him there is none other. No, as he gave, they that climb up some other way are robbers. Then, listen to that voice within. Prepare thyself, consecrate thyself, purify thy body, thy mind in much the same manner as did those of old who were, or would be, the priests and priestesses to Jehovah. And then, open thy heart and thy mind to those promises, surrounding thyself with the consciousness of the Christ love. And he stands and knocks. Will ye entertain him? Then, do not entertain others. What is thy desire towards thy brethren? Let each of you gathered here meditate before him, opening thy mind, thy heart, to the influences from without, surrounding thyself with the thought, the purpose of the Christ life, the Christ Spirit as manifested in the earth among his brethren, and ask self, what do I desire? What are the motivating purposes that prompt me to speak thus and so respecting my brother, respecting the activities in the life of the individual? And then, what is the desire of my heart as to the manner of life that I would live, as a channel of blessing, as one who has been called to a purpose? In giving to thy brother those things that bespeak of the glories of a Christ-like life, who thought it not robbery to make himself equal with God. Think it not robbery of thyself to make thyself equal to a God among thy brethren, but look upon the heart of self. Is it for the satisfying of the ego in self? Is it that self may be lauded, praised? Is it that self has been taken advantage of, and there is the desire that there be a reckoning in thine own heart, and conscience and purposes? Or hast thou put on the whole armor of Christ? Hast thou looked into the face of the Christ, that thou surroundest thyself with, and said, as it has been given, Here am I, Lord, use me, send me. For the day of the Lord draweth nigh, and eternity is long with the soul. Ye have abilities in art, literature, song, music. These ye have used, and also abused. Do not consider these as thine only outlets, nor thine only means of attaining or gaining that as ye would have in the material experience. But rather be ye guided by that intuitive force that is thine experience. And daily surround thyself with that consciousness of the promises he has made, as recorded in the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of John, as being thy very own, and the way will open for thee. For, thy body is indeed the temple of the living God. Treat it as such. He has promised to meet thee in that temple. Then as ye meditate, as ye pray, As ye are moved to give expression of that consciousness, which arises from same. Let thy hand find that to do which is in keeping with that direction ye will be given from day to day. In thy talents, do not overlook thy abilities, as a means of giving to others counsel, direction, but let it be only that which is in keeping with his directions, as are indicated and pointed out to thee in that which begins, In my Father's house are many mansions. It is thy Father, his Father, thy God, his God, who raised him up, that ye, through thy own consciousness, might have an advocate with the Father. Thus ye may know him as ye meditate upon him. Can you advise me regarding levitation, leaving my body, so that I may have more control of myself at this time? As has been indicated for the body, this should be rather an assurance than as a sought experience. How can I be completely protected while levitating? Surrounding thyself with the Christ consciousness. Living daily in that consciousness by thy dealings with others. Did he find fault? Do ye? Did he question purposes? Do ye? Do ye love those who hate thee? He did. Do you keep the words, not of myself, but my Father who worketh in and through me, as thy ideal? He did. He is thy pattern. That is thy protection ever. For it is in him ye live and move and have thy being. Ye know that, act like it. How can I overcome my horror of noise and thunderstorms? I was always afraid of noise, but the fear of thunder has been only in the last 15 or 20 years. If I did not have this, I could manage better. These are a part of thy consciousness from experiences in the material plane. Surround thyself at such times with the consciousness of a walk and talk with him, and noise and fear will be no more. Why does constant awareness of aloneness and incompletion predominate? The purpose being in the right direction, the loneliness is felt because of the feeling of insecurity. Let that light be in and through thee that encompassed him, even in the garden, when he asked those to watch with him while he prayed. Surround thyself with that consciousness which comes in merely calling the name, Jesus, the Christ, the same yesterday, today and forever. This will bring the conviction within self, as it did to him when he withstood the temptations of the body, the temptations of the mind, the temptation of purpose in the earth, and angels ministered unto him. For, to each entity, each soul, there is ever the ministering angel before the throne of grace, the throne of God. The ministering angel is the purposefulness, the spirit with which he would do anything in relationship to others. Trust not in the short arm of material things, but putting aside all those things that do so easily beset, doubt, fear, hate, jealousy, so live before even those who question thee, even those who doubt thy purposes, that they may know ye walk and talk oft with thy Lord, the Christ. Not as one boasting of power, or as one boasting of companionships, but humble thyself even as he. Though he were the Son, know that there was the lonesomeness, the fear of those influences that beset those he loved. Yet, knowing he hath entered into that glory, becoming the high priest of his people, they that seek him daily, and having sat down on the right hand of the Father, then through him ye have that promise, Lo, I am with thee. With this assurance, why should doubt and fear, why should the turmoils that arise bring consternation, or trembling within thee? For he hath assured that he will give that peace within, not as the world knoweth peace, but that peace that comes from the knowledge that, as I treat my fellow man, day by day, so am I treating my Lord, my Master, even my brother, Jesus, the Christ. Let not thy heart be troubled, neither be ye afraid. For as ye seek, as ye live, so will it be measured unto thee and thine. For the love of the Father in the Christ casteth out fear, and brings that assurance of his abiding presence with thee. The uppermost thought in my mind is to do aright, for the sake of myself and family. How do you think this right should be handled? This should be not for self or family, but rather for the love of the Father which was shown thee in the gift of the Son, that ye through him might have access to the Father. What entities or entity, that is, person, should be reached, as a person with a clean conscience to direct me in my relationship with men. Let that heart be in thee as was in the Christ, not as men, not as spirit, not as a person, not as any individual, only the Christ. How shall I proceed to withdraw from my nearby association any evil influence, or any evil doer, or anyone working amidst greed, jealousy, or the direction of some one or group of individuals? So surround thyself by thought, by deed, by act, with the consciousness of the Christ, that no man, no group, no thought, may hurt thee. What sudden enlightenment comes to you, now, describing my future life? Relate just what you see as you see it. That is in thine own making. For, no, he, the Father, hath made thee a free-willed individual, choosing then, and choose ye, whom ye will serve. There is set before thee life and death, good and evil, choose thou. As to what, as to which, as to where, as to how ye will choose, this is within thine own consciousness. Choose thou. Let thy prayer be: Lord, Maker of heaven and earth, Giver of life and love that is manifested in Jesus, the Christ, be thou near unto me. Not that I may have other than personal love for thee and thy purposes in the earth. Make me, O God, a channel of blessings to others day by day. In his name we ask this. For as he hath given, if ye love me, keep my commandments, and as ye abide in me, ask and it shall be given thee the desire of thy heart. If that desire is in accord, in attune, in attunement with the constructive forces of thyself, thy experiences and thy relations. For he keepeth the way, ever. Then as the body is the temple of the living soul, it is a part and parcel of the mind that is the builder. Then as ye open in thy meditation, first surround thyself with the thought, the prayer, the desire that Jesus, in his promises, guide thee in thy seeking. Then ye have set yourself aright. Then again, as ye raise thy power of vibratory forces through thy body, ye give thyself in body, in mind, in purpose, in desire, into the hands, into the keeping of his purposes with thee. Let the mind be in us that was in Jesus, the Christ, then there will come a faith that is sufficient unto every need, even faith which removes mountains, changes the destiny of nations, yea, brings worlds into existence. Believest thou this? How may this be accomplished? By opening our hearts to the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, beauty and might, throwing about us the protection found in the thought of the Christ, then add to our faith works, which showeth forth these attributes, that are expressions of his Spirit in the world. So shall our faith develop, and become to us the evidence of things not seen. Each of us must show by our actions in our daily life, that we believe, that we have faith, and know that as we use what we have, more will be given. How may I bring about greater emotional stability? As the body-mind entertains and enters into the raising of the kundalini influence through the body, surround self with the light of the Christ consciousness, by thought, by word of mouth, by impressing it upon self. And in that light there may be never any harm to self, or to the emotions of the body, or any fear of the mental and spiritual self being entertained, or used by the dark influence. Please give advice that would help in those times when there is the beginning of kundalini to rise, or there is the circulation of kundalini through the body. What should be the next step? Surround self with that consciousness of the Christ Spirit. This by the affirmation of let self be surrounded with the Christ consciousness, and the directions be through those activities in the body force itself. Do not seek the lower influences, but the Christ consciousness. Is there any special prayer for me? This would be as teaching the brook to sing, to give for the entity. But this may aid in itself, finding that prayer it may give to many another soul from the storehouse of this soul's experience. As I open my body, mind and soul to thee, O God my Maker, surrounding myself with the consciousness of the Christ life, show thou me the way to be the greater channel for my fellow man. Are there any special things I should do when I meditate? Use that given. Ever surround self with but consciousness of the Christ presence being with thee. 4. As it has ever been the experience of man in a material world, no one ever made an object of beauty that it was not counterfeited. No one ever lived a perfect life that it was not begrudged by another. For this in the experience of the world is a law inevitable in the affairs of those in carnal forces. So, in opening self, as should every soul, for the body is the temple of the soul, the temple of the Spirit of the Father, surround self with that which is ever present with the Father, and he is faithful. For he has given, as ye seek me, as ye ask in my name, that will be thine. 4. As I go to the Father, and ye abide in me and I in the Father, the deeds that you do in the body may be manifesting, and be examples of, the love of the Father to the sons of men. Thus, as this entity has manifested in an experience deeds both from the mind of the body and the mind of the soul in one experience, it becomes fitting that it should lead many a soul to the knowledge and the understanding of the love of the Father to the sons of men. And thus may the prayers, the supplications of the entity, of the body, of the soul, come to mean much to every one. What thoughts should I hold that will help me to come nearer to God, and to all that is holy and pure? As the Spirit of the Christ leads me, I can do no wrong. When myself alone leads me, I may err, but with the Christ as my guide, as my companion, as my Saviour, I will rest my case, my troubles, my pleasures, my joys, with him. 4. Be ye joyous in the service of men. 4. The Father would have his children be happy, be joyous, and not sad. Is there anything I can do for those I associate with, that haven't found God? Let thine own life and thine own light so shine among men that they, too, may be constrained to glorify him that thou glorifiest in thy life, thy words, thy deeds. What is the best procedure to use in leading my morning devotional group? Open thy heart to God, surrounding self with the consciousness of the promises of the Christ. If ye love me, ye will keep my commandments, and I and the Father will come and abide with thee. And as this is felt and spoken in body, in mind, visualize the coming of the Christ as he spoke in the day by the sea. Would appreciate advice and counsel on my meditation periods. And why do I seem to go unconscious so quickly? Is this advisable? If there is the attuning of self, the surrounding of self with the Christ consciousness, be not afraid. If there is the experience and fear creeps in, as it did in those closed places when ye were questioned by Paul, be fearful. But let thy meditation be, as given, here am I, O God. Use me, send me. What should I do to develop myself to receive those spiritual gifts God has in store for me? Study day by day to show self approved unto God through the applications in the daily associations with man, the fruits of the Spirit, as, making the activities in keeping with, as ye would that men should do unto you, do ye even so unto them. Patience, persistence, loving kindness, love, graciousness, soft words rather than anger. These will make for the abilities of the mental forces to divide correctly the words of truth that may be received in the periods of meditation, when there may be the attuning of self to those influences in the spiritual realm. Yet on each occasion so guard self, as to bar the evil influences, by surrounding self with the love of the Master, of the Christ consciousness. And, in this manner may there be opened for the body consciousness, for the physical mental abilities, the proper relations, the proper activities of the body in the developing of the soul and spiritual influences of the entity, the soul. Please give me my prayer. Each soul should seek rather that which is the answer in self, yet this may guide in the present. Father, the giver of all good and perfect gifts, surround thou me in my seeking to know what thou would have me do with the consciousness of the promises made in thy Son, that he will abide with those that seek to do his biddings. Show thou me the way, as I pray. Then the way is opened before thee, either in the music that may be made by self upon the violin, or in the prostrating of self, in holding the attunement of the consciousness that may come from within, hearken to that given. If the success is not found in the first, then seek again and again at the same period, that may be chosen, either early in the morning or in the noonday, or in the evening, whenever chosen to give that time to his making aware in thee that thou shouldst do. For he has ever promised, and he is faithful to those that cry unto him in the night or in the day. For he will not leave thy soul desolate, neither will he allow thee to be burdened beyond that thou art able to bear. But he whom the Lord loveth, he purgeth every one, that each soul may be the purer in the light. What is the meaning of the feeling which I have in meditation? More oft it is the fear of letting go, or at others the interference from without, from fear. Yet, as we have given, by the surrounding of self with the Christ, the loving Son's consciousness, this will be taken away, and the joy of knowing ye are a channel of blessing will enter in. Where can I find help and relief in my struggle for existence? In him, he will show thee the way, and those who need that supplied through the physical efforts of self and associates will seek through that channel for that desired. And the laborer is worthy of the higher, in the mental world, the spiritual world and the material world. Fear not. Do right. All will be well. Be not weary, be not overcome, but overcome with his promises. Would God answer if we pray for help in our daily material affairs? Just as we have given. Aware in those directions as indicated. Take from self the attitudes that have been indicated. Add rather that attitude of letting the life within self be of such a temperament, of such a nature, that though the heart and mind may be heavy, that which is shed out may show in self, the relationships the body self, the inner self, bears to the creative influences, and the joys that should come from an inner self, keeping itself in attune with the Christ principles in, and ruling, and guiding the life. In the mental and spiritual forces, keep self open, but only in that accord where the divine, that is an expression of self, may direct. Or, ever surround self, with the thought of the consciousness of the Christ within, or keep self ever surrounded in the mental attitudes, with the Christ consciousness. Let the light of the glory of a risen Lord, ever be thy light, thy guide, thy way of approach, to knowledge, power, wisdom and might. For the might is of the Lord, the wisdom is his, knowledge is of God. Those things that make for bringing happiness, then, the bringing of peace, are from walking the closer with the Christ. In view of the warning in my life reading about not using psychics to my undoing, is there any danger to me in such a venture? If self is constantly surrounded with that purpose, that desire to fulfill that he would have thee do, it is well. If it is to lend self for those that are unnamed, or having a name below, beyond or between his name, not so well. Please elaborate what pitfalls in psychics I must avoid. They that deny that he has come in the flesh, have naught to do with. They that profess and live not in their daily life that they profess, have naught to do with. They that are egotistical, self-centered, or of such that belittle anyone, have naught to do with. Is talking about experiences one of the things meant? Experiences, and this should be an infallible criterion, should be the result of a life lived, not the purpose of the life experience. Prove thyself worthy of a channel through which he may speak. For until he, thy Saviour, thy Christ, hath confidence and patience in thee, as thou ought in thyself. Prove thyself, for he is within thee. How can I help my son, mentally? Instilling the Christ principles, as the basis for his judgments, for his decisions, in his dealings with every problem, good, bad or indifferent, that arises within his experience. For, as has been given, train the child in the ways he should go, of the Lord, and in his age, he will not depart from under the shadow of his hand. If the constructive or creative forces are chosen, that are the manifestations of the Maker, the Creator, the Lord of the earth, yea, of the universe, then man chooses the way that builds into the consciousness the awareness of that godly approach to the Christ consciousness. Those that choose for self that of fame, fortune or whatnot, that takes hold upon materiality alone, build that which becomes dross in the experience, and bring discomfort, disease, disturbance to the body and the mind, and, as it were, shrivel or starve the soul. Hence into man's consciousness, there have been given signs, omens, signposts, as it were, in not only the manifestations through man's experiences within his higher mental self, as may be had from the astrological aspects, which are from sojourns of the entity, in those environments, between the periods of manifestation in the earth, but in those that arise as emotions, through the material senses, from the sojourns in the earth, and also the teachings, the warnings that are given here, there, from those who are as messengers, from a living experience, or God. Through my meditation, has the kundalini fire risen to the head or top of spine at base of skull? If so, was it because of sex abstinence and discipline that this happened? It has risen at times, but has not remained, else there would not be those periods of confusion. For, when this has arisen, and is disseminated properly, through the 7 centers of the body, it has purified the body, from all desire of sex relationships. For, this is an outlet through which one may attain to celibacy, through this activity. That it has not remained indicates changes. Each soul should ever seek and be directed to be under the protection of the Christ consciousness in its seeking for information, or for guidance in seeking for same, and ever be surrounded by that consciousness. 4. Much might be given here as to what man in his estate has gained, and as to how he has gained that knowledge of the seeking for the awareness of a consciousness in what is called the unseen, the cosmic, the spirit realm, the unconscious of a conscious mind. In directing the body, then, either verbally or in the undertone or in the desire of all present, make the affirmation that only the highest may guide in all experiences, and there will grow the more perfect attunement by the associations of that consciousness ever of those present. And be they saint or sinner, rich or poor, stranger or closest in association, they should ever be asked to hold that affirmation through every period of laying aside of the conscious self to enter in communication with the highest that may be attained in self. And those who cannot conform should not be present. How may we have the mind of Christ? As we open our hearts, our minds, our souls, that we may be a channel of blessings to others, so we have the mind of the Christ, who took upon himself the burden of the world. So may we, in our own little sphere, take upon ourselves the burdens of the world. The joy, the peace, the happiness, that may be ours is in doing for the other fellow. 4. Gaining an understanding of the laws as pertain to right living in all its phases makes the mind in attune with creative forces, which are of his consciousness. So we may have that consciousness, by putting into action that we know. Keep ever before thee thy ideal in the Christ, for the healing, the counsel, the hope, the harmony, the peace that comes to all must come through that consciousness of the indwelling of that love in the experiences of all. Keep faithful, then, in thine service, in being a channel of blessings to many. Be not weary. Be not slothful. Be not unmindful of that which is set before thee. Turn not back, but press on to the more glorious light that comes with the closer walk with him day by day. Have I had sufficient preparation to begin work in the glad helpers? Seek thine own heart. Purge it from every thought that would separate thee from the love of the Christ consciousness. Who would tell thee thou art worthy of this or that? Not through these channels, for all have an access to the Father always, as he dwells in thine heart. Put into activity that thou knowest to do, being guided by the love, that protection, that comes with knowing that you know that Christ abides in thee. While meditating, have experienced a perfect relaxation of the body, the head being drawn backward. Please explain. The nearer the body of an individual, or this, draws to that attunement, or consciousness, as was in the Christ consciousness, as is in the Christ consciousness, the nearer does the body, or that body, become a channel for life, living life, to others to whom the thought is directed. Hence at such periods, these are the manifestations of the life, or the spirit, acting through the body. After meditating with the group, my whole body seemed to be vibrating to the thought that I had opened my heart to the unseen forces that surround the throne of grace, and beauty, and might, and throwing about self that protection that is found in the thoughts of Him. Please explain. Just as has been given, the nearer one, a body, this body, draws to that complete consciousness that is in Him, the greater may be the power that is manifested through His presence in the world through that as is brought about in self's own experience. The more forceful, the more helpful, does the body become at such, and through such, experiences. Let these remain as sacred experiences, gathering more and more of same, but as such is given out, so does it come. How can I develop greater spiritual control over the mental body during meditations? The more that there is held, that the mental and physical body is surrounded by, is protected by, that consciousness of the Master that gave, I will not leave thee comfortless, and the greater the physical can be submerged, the greater will be the activity of the spiritual forces in and through such bodies. Please interpret for us what is meant by the symbols, the rod and cup. All must pass under the rod, as of that cleansing necessary, for the inflowing of the Christ consciousness, even as He passed under the rod, partook of the cup, and give same to others. See? Will my studies in Amorc bring me the most in the highly spiritual, or the tarot, particularly the course on the magical language? Either of these may bring material help or gain. The spiritual gain is in the truth that is found in Him, who is the way, the truth, the light. These others are only as light along the way. The truth is only in Him, Jesus, the Christ. Seek rather, daily, to glorify the Christ purpose, the Christ cause in the earth. And as He has given, let thy tenets ever be, thou shalt love the Lord thy God, with all thy mind, all thy body and thy soul, and thy neighbor as thyself. Thus may ye make the paths straight for many. In this, may we find thy own way, in the light of thy troubles, of thy abilities, of thy faults, of thy virtues. For, all virtue is of Him, and not of thyself. Thus the pattern ever should be not merely the tenets instigated, manifested, that were ever a part of the manifestation of the man Jesus, but as demonstrated and taught by the Christ and His associates and followers in the earth. So ever seeds of the Spirit of truth. For each entity, each soul is responsible for that place where it is. Then let thy light so shine as to be ever as a light unto those who sit in darkness. Is there today in operation an outer organization representative of the Antichrist forces, which has power to subvert governments, as well as institutions? If so, will you explain and give directions for counteracting these forces? As has been given, there is the need more for the world thought, for every soul turning to the power within, and giving God a chance with their lives, their purposes, their desires one with His. And there is that power that is only in the influence for destruction, as man himself gives it power. But just as has been given of old, one with the strength, the power of the Lord, may put the thousands to flight. Then, it behooves each soul, here, everywhere, to seek more and more for the strength, the direction, the might of that promised in. If ye will call, I will hear. First it may be said, study, through that known in self, of the spiritual and mental forces, active in the experience of the body, to show self approved unto an ideal, that is set in the Son, the Christ, knowing that in possessing the consciousness of His love, His manifestation, all is well. For, as is known, without that love as He manifested among men, nothing can, nothing did, nothing will come into consciousness of matter. Not that we may deny evil and banish it, but supplanting and rooting out evil in the experience, replacing same with the love, that is in the consciousness of the body Jesus, the Christ, we may do all things in His name, and using those opportunities in whatsoever sphere of activity the entity may find to show forth those commands he gave. If ye love me, keep my commandments. What, ye ask, are his commandments? A new commandment give I unto you, that ye love one another. What, then, are the fruits of love? The fruits of the Spirit, which are kindness, hope, fellowship, brotherly love, friendship, patience. These are the fruits of the Spirit, these are the commands of him, that ye manifest them, in whatsoever place ye find yourself, and your soul shall grow in grace, in knowledge, in understanding, and that joy, that comes with a perfect knowledge in him, brings the joys of earth, the joys of the mental mind, or joys of the spheres, and the glory of the Father. In thine experience,